Hey guys, Joelle from FromScratchFarmstead.com here, and while we love our sourdough pizza crust and have it for pizza night every weekend, sometimes I just don't have a starter going and ready. I don't have the ingredients I need to make sourdough pizza crust. So what do we do when it's Tuesday night and everyone in our family is asking for pizza? And that is when we make this super quick and easy, you can make it in less than an hour, from scratch pizza crust. So the secret ingredient in this pizza crust recipe is going to be this quick rise instant yeast. So instead of using sourdough or a regular active yeast, you're gonna use a quick rise instant yeast. And then this is what's gonna allow your pizza crust to get that nice rise, but also be really quick and be able to make it in less than an hour. And so for this recipe, it's pretty basic. All you need is ingredients that you have on hand. So we're gonna be using an einkorn flour. So this is our favorite type of flour to use. It's an heirloom flour. It's easier to digest. It's not hybridized, but you can use any flour for this. My only suggestion would be with the einkorn, I found that you generally need a little bit more of it. So in this recipe, we're gonna use roughly 5 cups. And so if you're using a regular white or wheat, you might want to use less, but I always just start with a little bit less and add as you need till you get the right texture in your dough. So you're gonna need your flour, and then it's just your quick rise instant yeast, some water, some salt, some olive oil, and a little bit of sugar to make that, to activate that yeast. All right, so we're gonna start off with just measuring 4 cups of our flour. All right, and then we're gonna add the rest of our dry ingredients to that. So that's just gonna be 2 teaspoons of salt. And you can add other herbs to your pizza crust if you like, but I usually just do the salt and then add whatever herbs or spices we want on top. So 2 teaspoons of salt, and then you're gonna need 1.25 teaspoons of your instant yeast. 1.25 teaspoons of that, and then you're gonna do a tablespoon of your sugar. We like to use an organic cane sugar, but any white sugar is fine. All right, and then we're gonna go ahead and mix this up. And then we're gonna add in our wet ingredients. So that is gonna be 1.5 cups of water, just room temperature water. And then 2 tablespoons of olive oil. All right, and then we're gonna mix all of this up. And what we're looking for at this point is a soft dough to come together. We want a soft, kneadable dough. So we'll see where we are at this point. All right, so we are still a little bit too wet and sticky here, so I'm gonna go ahead and add more flour. All right, so I'm gonna add another about 1/2 cup of flour at this point, just to see where that gets us. You just kind of want to add a little bit at a time until you keep stirring it in until you get the right consistency for your dough. We're gonna call this good, and then I'm just gonna make sure to have plenty of flour on hand for kneading. So after you have your dough made, you're going to knead it then for about 5 minutes. So you can do this with a dough hook, or I like to just do it by hand. All right, so you wanna make sure you have a nicely floured surface. I found that for this pizza, you just need to continually add flour to make sure it doesn't all stick together, stick to your hands when you are kneading, but turn it out onto your board and then knead for about 5 minutes. All right, so after you kneaded it for about 5 minutes, you're gonna go ahead and just let it rest for another 15 or 20 minutes. I usually just put it back in my bowl, cover it with a towel, and let it rest for 15 or 20 minutes. And then this is a good time to get all your toppings prepared. So chop those veggies and the cheese and get everything ready. All right, so it's been about 15 or 20 minutes. Our pizza crust is ready to go. Our toppings are ready. So we are gonna go ahead and make this pizza. So what you wanna do, so this, I don't think I mentioned this. So this pizza actually makes 2 pretty good sized crusts. And so what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your pizza dough and you're gonna divide it in half. And actually, it's easier to do this with a knife. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut our pizza dough in half. And now I like to make it and roll it out on our cast iron pans. So these cast iron pans have been greased and they have been preheated. So if you're cooking with cast iron, preheating them is key to making them not stick. So I just stick them in the oven while my oven is preheating to get them nice and hot. And so once they're nice and hot and preheated, then you can go ahead and roll your dough out on them. Alternatively, you can use like a pizza stone or just a cookie sheet, baking sheet, whatever you want. I would just, if you use a cookie sheet or baking sheet, either grease it or put a piece of parchment paper on the bottom so it doesn't all stick. So you're gonna divide your dough in half and then you're just gonna go ahead and roll it out on your pan. It's just slightly sticky here, so we're just gonna add a little flour to make it easier to roll out. But you just wanna get it all the way to the edges as best as you can. A nice thing about this pizza dough is also that it freezes super well. So say you only wanna make 1 crust, you can always freeze the other one for later use. And so at this point, you just take your ball of dough, you put it in like a quart size Ziploc bag, and then you can go ahead and pop it in the freezer. And then when you wanna use it, just take it out, and let it thaw in the fridge like overnight until you're ready to use it, and then do this process. So this 12-inch pan makes a thinner pizza crust. You can see there it's starting to pull apart a little bit. You could probably also get by with doing a 10-inch cast iron pan if that's what you have. It'll just make a thicker crust, and so you'll just want to make sure you add some to the baking time. So this is gonna bake after we put all of our toppings on. So you don't need to pre-bake the crust, which is nice. You're just gonna go ahead and roll it out and then add your toppings right away. And then you're gonna bake it at 450 degrees for, depending on how thin, so this is on the thinner side, like I said, so it'll be about 12 to 15 minutes. If your crust is thicker, you'll wanna probably do it more like 20 minutes, but just kinda gauge it. All right, so after your pizzas are topped, you're gonna go ahead and pop them in your 450-degree oven for around 12 to 15 minutes, and that's it. That's how you can make a super easy, from scratch pizza on a weeknight in less than an hour.